Good morning, second grade, and welcome to week 8 of e-learning. This week we are going to read two different versions of the same story called The Princess and the Pea. This is kind of what we did with The Tortoise and the Hare. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading The Princess and the Pea, a retelling of the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale by Susan Blackaby, illustrated by Charlene DeLage. Once upon a time, a noble king and a wise queen had a son. He was a fine young prince. When it came time for the prince to marry, he had to find a wife. "I can't marry just any old princess," said the prince. "I have to find a real princess." The prince traveled from place to place. He met many, many princesses. All of them were nice, but the prince could not tell which of them were real princesses. None of them seemed quite right. There's a lot of princesses right there. The prince looked and looked and looked and looked. He looked all over the world with no luck at all. The prince was very sad. "I'd like to marry a real princess," he said, "but I can't find one." One winter night, a huge storm blew in. Thunder boomed, lightning flashed, it rained like crazy. Suddenly, there came a knock at the castle gate. It barely could be heard above the storm. "Who's there?" asked the king. "A princess," said a sweet voice. "A princess!" the king exclaimed, and he opened the gate at once. All right, so this is where we stop for Monday, okay? So stop here for Monday's reading. There stood a wet, muddy girl. Her hair streamed like seaweed. Her clothes were soaked. Water flowed out from her shoes. "Oh my, look at this poor princess," said the king. "Are you a real princess?" asked the prince. "Of course I am," said the princess. "I'm just a bit messy." "I'm not so sure she's real," thought the queen, "but I know just how to find out." The queen sneaked off to the bedroom. She removed all the bedding and she put a green pea on the bed. The queen put 20 mattresses on top of the pea. Then she put 20 feather beds on top of the mattress. One little tiny pea and 20 mattresses? Look how high up that is now. The queen returned to the princess. "Your bedroom is all set," she said. "Thank you," said the tired princess. She climbed up into bed. "Sleep tight," said the queen. In the morning, the princess came down for breakfast. She greeted the king and queen. "How did you sleep?" asked the queen. "Bad, bad, bad," said the princess. "I didn't close my eyes. I tossed and turned all night. There was a bump in my bed. It was as hard as a rock. It was as big as an elephant. I'm black and blue all over. I feel horrible." "All from that tiny little pea?" "How delightful," said the queen. "Only a real princess would feel a little pea through all that fluff." The prince was thrilled. "I have found my real princess at last," he said. The prince and the princess were married the next day. The pea was placed on display at the royal hall. Look at that tiny little pea. That's pretty silly. All right, so this is where Tuesday's reading stops. So if it's Tuesday, go ahead and stop now. Okay? And now we're going to read kind of a silly version of The Princess and the Princess and the Pea. So this one is kind of like what we just read, or like the funny version of The Tortoise and the Hare. So this is where Wednesday's reading starts, okay? "Believe me, I never felt a pea." The Story of the Princess and the Pea as told by the princess. By Nancy Lowen, illustrated by Christian Bernardini. Okay. Can you keep a secret? I mean a real lip-sealed and throw away the key secret. You can? Okay, good. Here it goes. I'm not a real princess. Shh. Yes, I slept on a stack of 20 mattresses, and yes, it was the worst night's sleep I've ever had. And yes, I did marry Prince Matthew, but there's a lot more to the story than that. First thing you should know is that Prince Matt, wasn't all that interested in getting married. His dream is to be a successful businessman. He came up with one crazy idea after another. Turn the royal castle into a hotel, Open a restaurant that served only purple food. Great plate, berry medley, plum, whip, prune surprise, purple cabbage, casserole. Create a self-cleaning horse-drawn carriages. Whoa, kind of looks like it's going through a car wash, right? But the queen didn't want her son to go into the business. She thought if he were married to a spoiled, pampered girl, a real princess, in other words, he wouldn't have time for his silly dreams. She traveled all over, testing princesses to make sure that they were the real thing, but none of them met her approval. One princess politely ate tough steak rather than demand a tender piece. Fail. Another princess carried her own luggage. Fail. Several princesses wore the same gown 2 days in a row. Fail. So it sounds like in this version, the queen is trying to trick the prince to find a real princess or someone who's a little spoiled. This is where I come in, and my dog. His name is Prince Super Pooch, or Prince S for short. Isn't that cute? One night, Prince S and I went for a walk in the woods, and suddenly, crack, boom, flash, a storm came up. We needed shelter, and I knew the castle was nearby. I picked up Prince S and made a run for it. A maid opened the door. Hi, I gasped. I'm Starla, and this is Prince S. Could we please spend the night? Ah, another princess, the maid muttered in an unfair way. Follow me. No, I'm not a princess. Prince S is the name of my dog, I tried to explain, but she didn't pay any attention. Maybe she couldn't hear me because of the thunder. The maid showed me to a bedroom and my jaw dropped. There stood a towering stack of mattresses. Excuse me, I said, but I don't need anything so fancy. Really, just throw a sleeping bag on the floor. I'm good. The maid sniffled rudely and left. All those mattresses. Oh my goodness. Carefully counted the mattresses, 20 in all. Prince S pawed at the bottom mattress. He does when there's a crumb under the stove he can't reach. Stop that, I said. We're guests here. Be good. The bed was super soft and very comfortable. The sheets were as smooth as silk and smelled like a flower garden. I soon fell asleep, but not for long. I must have rolled over a little too far because the next thing I knew, thwack, I hit the floor hard. Beds like that should come with guardrails, maybe even parachutes. I climbed back up the ladder and spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling. I was too scared to move. That's a big fall. The next morning, I was tired and cranky. I hardly slept a wink. I said, see these bruises? I can't wait to go home and sleep in a real bed. The maid stared at me for a moment, then her face lit up. Your Majesty, she shouted as she ran down the hallway. This girl is a real princess. She complained about the pea. So that's what Prince S was trying to get at beneath all these mattresses, a pea. That ridiculous bed was a test. Again, Prince S is the name of my dog I called after her. I didn't say anything about a pea. But you know how fairy tale weddings go, so there's no stopping them. Beautiful gowns appear, the castle glitters and gleams, music fills the air, crowds gather, and then suddenly, there I was, married to a prince. Luckily, Matt and I love each other, and married life hasn't caused him to give up his dreams. In fact, we're business partners. We've been very successful selling mattresses. Say yes to the best, a princess mattress. Have a royal night's sleep on a princess mattress. Sale. Look at that. So that is the end of our story, our second book. So you can see how there are similarities between the two stories, but there's also a lot of differences. The second story we read kind of was for fun, right? It was funny. And the first story gave us a very clear cut of how it was going to go, right? Started from the beginning, and then he went off to go find his princess. Whereas in this story, the second story, who went to go find the princesses? The queen, right? So there are very big differences between the two stories. So while you're reading this week, I want you guys to focus on the similarities, but also on all of those differences that you can see. All right, have a good week. Make sure you get your assignments done, okay? Okay, bye.